Today, Chicago is home to a diverse and flourishing Native community made up of people from more than 100 different Indigenous nations across the United States and Canada. Those of us who are part of this community have unique identities as urban Native people. We maintain connections to our distinct tribal nations, but also consider Chicago and the Native community here our home.
Many of the families who live here today are the descendants of those who moved to Chicago in the mid-20th century as part of an urban relocation program run by the U.S. Bureau of Indian Affairs. Native people were encouraged to move to cities informally for many decades as part of larger assimilation attempts, and then more formally following the passage of the Indian Relocation Act in 1956. This is an undated propaganda poster showing the Red Lake Ojibwe Burns family in their new home in Waukegan. Dave Spencer, Diné and Mississippi Chata, Executive Director of the Chicago American Indian Center and co-curator of the Indigenous Chicago exhibition.
The Bureau of Indian Affairs circulated posters like these, as well as films like the one playing on the west side of the gallery, in an effort to convince Native families to move to cities like Chicago and the surrounding suburbs. The propaganda materials featured images of the stereotypical American dream: men working good jobs, women completing housework and other domestic tasks like grocery shopping, and of course, television.
Though the propaganda materials promised well-paying jobs, housing, and support for Native families who chose to move, the reality was much different. Those who relocated were met with harsh racism and discrimination, and the second half of the film on the west side of the gallery shows portions of the documentary Divided Trail, displaying some of the dire housing conditions that community members experienced.
Once again, promises were broken. But those who moved here came together to create a new community that was built on mutual aid and support.
This is The Chieftain, a newsletter published by the American Indian Church and a community service directory published by the Native-led organization Native American Educational Services.
Native people use newsletters like The Chieftain to circulate local news and events, recipes, and available resources, a practice that continues today through email newsletters like those sent by the Chicago Public Schools American Indian Education Program and the Chicago American Indian Community Collaborative. Our community also founded several organizations to support families and create spaces for intergenerational gatherings. Many of the organizations listed in this directory are featured throughout the exhibition, and some, like the American Indian Center, American Indian Health Services of Chicago, the Native American Support Program at University of Illinois Chicago, and the Darcy McNichol Center for American Indian and Indigenous History, are still open today.